Well, if you were a kid growing up in the 70s or even the early 80s, the Bugaloos were a ubiquitous presence on your television screen. Of course, the TV show launched in 1970 by Sid and Marty Krofft, featured 4 young actors and singers. That's right, the Bugaloos, were they a TV show, were they a band? They were kind of both, and kids all over the world loved them. And I was one of those kids, and we have Caroline Ellis joining us tonight on the show. You know, it's a, no pun intended, it's a joy to speak with you.
How long have you been planning to say that?
All my life.
Well, thank you very much.
Well, I have to ask, when you were a little girl, did you have an interest in the theater and in performing and singing?
I had actually sort of grown up in showbiz, if you like. I was going to a theatrical school, and it was quite normal there for the children to be going off and doing films or theatre or television. So when I saw the advert in the newspapers for the Bugaloos, I wasn't going to go along for it. I thought it was just a publicity stunt. And then a friend of mine said she was going to go along, and I said, well, it's just a publicity stunt, isn't it? They know who they're going to have right from the beginning. So anyway, she taught me to going along with her. So off we went, and we went to EMI London, and queued up with everybody else. I told my agent, because I had an agent, that I was going to go along, and some other colleagues had gone as well. So that's really how it started. It started at the EMI, and then to my surprise, they asked me back again. I mean, there were queues of people. In total, they auditioned 4,000 people over a period of a few days. And I can remember sitting in a room with about a dozen other people, boys and girls, and we each, one by one, had to stand up and sing a song. No backing, no music or anything. Right. And that was really, you know, when they asked me back, and so it went on from there. Then we had to do different things. So I had actually been in showbiz for a few years as a child actress, if you like, but I was still at school. I was still studying at drama school. Mm-hmm. So yes, Little John had been also in music for a while. Wayne was actually in acting as well. He was at a different drama school, and I think it was just Big John that came from a circus family, that although he had sort of come from a showbiz background, it was from a different type of background of showbiz, if you like, circus. Right. So anyway, as you probably know, little by little they got it down to just a few of us, and then they told me that the funniest thing was, I can remember they told me, the Crofts told me that I had it, but I had to keep quiet for a few days because they hadn't made up their minds about the boys.
Oh, wow.
And that was torture. That was absolute torture, as you can imagine. They're thinking, my goodness, I'm being flown off to Hollywood, you know, an enormous, fantastic dream coming true. And now they're telling me I can't tell anyone. Not easy. But anyway, obviously I kept it quiet, and then once they decided, well, it was a whole big thing in the newspapers and everything. No, it was a fantastic experience, obviously. Even the auditioning was tough because I was actually working as well at the time during the day. I was doing a fashion show just down the road at the Dorchester Hotel. Mm-hmm. And then after, in the evening, then they asked us then they took us out to dinner, if I remember, one night, and to see how they behaved at the table and in restaurants, because obviously they were making a big investment. It wasn't just whether we could sing, whether we could perform, but it was also, could we behave ourselves? Did we know how to behave in restaurants and things like that. So it was quite strenuous, really. But anyway, there we are. You know the rest of it.
Well, I was going to ask you if the very first thing you had to do was record the songs, I would think.
No, actually it wasn't. Before we went over to Los Angeles, we were rehearsing in London, basically, just I'd been dancing all my life, all different sorts of dancing, ballet and tap dancing and modern dancing. I've been doing that at stage school anyway. But what they did was I can't remember exactly for how long, but we all every day had to go to, it was another stage school, and basically sort of do rehearsals every day, not rehearsing for the show, but doing different dance routines, doing different performances, if you like, a bit of everything, some of singing, some of dancing, some of acting, just to sort of prepare us, because they knew, but we didn't know then, they knew what sort of schedule they would be putting us into once we arrived. So they were actually preparing us mentally as well as physically to be ready to start work virtually as soon as we arrived in Los Angeles. So actually the first thing we did was, apart from going to the studios and seeing the sets and meeting everybody, having costume fittings and everything, the first thing we started doing was actually the TV series. And it was only, I can't remember exactly how long, but once we were well into recording the TV series, then in the evening afterwards, we were having to go to the studio to record the songs. So it was, you can imagine, you're sort of up early. You're up at, I can't remember, 6 o'clock, something like that, at the studio, makeup to get ready, and you're filming certain scenes. And then at the end of the day, whenever we finished, we then had to go to the studio to record the songs. And then, of course, when we recorded the songs, we would tape them, then bring them back to the studio, so that when we were filming one of the episodes and it was a song, obviously then we were not actually singing live which is perfectly normal. Yeah, we were obviously, and especially as we were flying half the time, which wasn't always very comfortable. You can't really sing while you're lying on a box with your legs in the air. Right. It's a bit difficult. But no, great fun. But I can remember, and I'll always remember, having been in musicals in London, from being 12 years of age, there's something about the theatre that always sends, it gets it just gives me the tingles. It's just magic. And I can remember walking into the studio. We went there one evening, and it was actually the orchestra there playing, just the orchestra by themselves. And I heard the music, and I walked and I saw them all playing, and I just thought, oh, wow, this is magic. This is fantastic. And then, of course, from then on, we started recording the songs as well. But they really worked us hard. Day and night we were working. We were only sleeping, about 5 hours a night. And then when the weekend came, we all collapsed and very often had to do interviews and everything.
Well, the music paid off because you snuck into the Hot 100 here in the U.S. with For a Friend.
Yeah, we did. I mean, I remember it going up in Billboard, right? And I can remember, if I remember correctly, in Seattle it got to number 1.
Well, there you go, the Bugaloos with their hit single, For a Friend, right here on WFDU FM. And Caroline Ellis from the Bugaloos is our guest. And what was it like walking onto that set for the very first time? It must have felt like you were Alice in Wonderland.
Well, it was a bit like Alice in Wonderland. I mean, it was a fantastic set. It was really, really magical because it was exactly like you see in the series. It had the big lily in the middle and then steps down. And then there were trampolines hidden, scattered around. So if we were doing a run and sort of jumped off a mini trampoline so it looked like we were sort of taking off, which was great fun. And it was you've seen it on the TV series. So, the imagination and the thought that went into that was quite astounding. It was quite incredible.
What was it like working with Martha Raye? Now, I don't know how well-known she was in Great Britain, but in America, she'd been a big star, going back to the 40s.
Well, of course, she'd been in Bob Hope movies and other films. She was known in England. She was well known in England, but not to the same degree as in America. In America, she was a huge, great big star. So when they said starring with Martha Raye, it sort of took a second or two. 1 minute, who's Martha Raye? And then you start thinking, yes, she was the comedian or the funny actress that was in this film with so-and-so and this with so-and-so. And then, of course, when they tell you, you start looking into it a bit more. You start checking it out. And, of course, no, she was absolutely fantastic and a wonderful, brilliant comedian as well, obviously, as everybody knows. She was terrific and very, very professional.
Yeah, it's funny, when I watch the show, I almost feel like it should be retitled The Bugaloos and Benita Bazaar, because she's at least...
Or maybe even Benita Bazaar and the Bugaloos.
Right. She's at least 60% of that show. She's all over it.
Yeah, she was terrific. I mean, you can't imagine the show without her, really.
I'm home. Where is everybody? Wolfer! Tweeter!
Coming. Hi, boss, you're late.
Yeah, where have you been? You dum-dums will never guess who I've been talking to in person.
Let's see.
Peter Patter, the king of all disc jockeys.
No.
Wanna guess again? Guess again? I'm telling you like it is, you twin twerps.
Keeping in mind, obviously, she had years and years' experience. Big John really hadn't had any experience, I don't think, in television or acting. I had, and Wayne had, Little John more on the music side. But we were being told, obviously, the English accent, all the time we were told to speak slower because now you Americans are used to the dialect. But we were kept on being told, don't speak so fast because nobody will understand you. So when I looked at the recordings afterwards, I thought, oh my God, we're speaking so slowly. It's crazy. None of it looks natural. But of course, at that time, I understand, especially for children, they wanted to make sure that we were being understood.
Well, Sleeping Beauty's finally making the scene.
Good morning.
Blimey, the emergency alarm!
Somebody's in trouble.
What's up, Bluebell? What's wrong?
What's the matter?
What is it, Bluebell? Where? Who's in trouble?
Well, all those ingredients worked because the show was a hit and there were all sorts of product tie-ins and comic books. And there was a big launch, and you did the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York City.
Oh, wow, that was unbelievable. None of us had ever seen anything like that. You may have parades in England or in London or any city, but nothing like that. And I can remember as well, we got a message that Mama Cass, who knew the Crofts pretty well, had phoned up and congratulated us and everything. But that parade was just unbelievable. I'd never seen anything like it and probably never will again. So fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
It's interesting that Mama Cass would call because the music of the Bugaloos, the harmonies are very Mama's and Papa's style,
Aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes, aren't they? I mean, I always admired the Mamas and Papas. I thought they were terrific, as we all do. And it was like I was absolutely dumbfounded to have a message from Mama Cass. I mean, it was just like, what? And so complimentary as well. I just have to mention that I never thought of myself as a singer, but all my life I always did musicals. So, I don't know, people just sort of, for some reason, chose me for musicals.
Well,
you had never a singer.
You had in the Bugaloos. You had your big solo piece, "The Senses of Our World."
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, my favorite song was "The Senses of Our World." I loved that song. I thought it was beautiful, and of course, "Castles in the Air" was really nice as well. But no, I'd done musicals in the West End and in London on the stage and things like that. But I still never, and to this day, I would never have called myself a singer. So, there we go.
We're talking with actress Caroline Ellis, who played the part of Joy on The Bugaloos. And when The Bugaloos just exploded as a TV hit, you guys were everywhere. You were in the teen magazines, and
Yes.
I've seen all those things. And that's, I have to admit, the majority of things that I know about you, I know from those magazines, which are probably all not true.
Do you know, this afternoon, what I did, I got out my scrapbook I've got loads of stuff, not only from the Bugaloos, but from other things I've done, theatre shows and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I dug up all the stuff from the Bugaloos, and I've got in front of me at this moment Tiger Beat.
Right, sure.
A copy of Tiger Beat. Yeah, with David Cassidy on the front, who I thought was really dishy. And then another Tiger Beat. Well, it was all David Cassidy, the Partridge Family in those days. And, and I was flicking through it, not just to read about what they were saying about the Bugaloos, but what they were saying about everybody else and who was sort of in at the time. And popular Jack Wilde, of course. He was still popular, although Puff and Stuff wasn't, I don't think it was on. Maybe repeats were on then. And the Osmonds, going back to the Osmonds, fascinating, because I haven't looked at these for a long, long time. And I thought, I'm going to have a look to see what stuff I've got. I've also got, which is changing it a bit, I actually found the Bugaloos Tour. We did a tour after we did the series and the record. I've actually got a date and itinerary of the tour that we did in America, and I've got it in front of me. I thought, goodness, yes, we went to Dallas, to Denver, Kansas City. We went to New York, and as you said, the Macy's Parade, Sam Goody's and Macy's Day Parade. We went to Atlanta. San Francisco was magic. San Diego. I mean, we went all over the place. It was just a whole new world for us. It was just amazing. It was just like a whirlwind. It was just a dream.
I should tell you that The Bugaloos is one of the first TV shows that I even remember seeing. I
was going to say, you must... Well, because I looked up a little bit about you. You must have just been a little toddler.
I was. Well, it's a show kind of made for that audience in a way.
Yes, it was lovely.
Yeah,
lovely.
you could be 3 years old or 2 years old, or you could be 13, and because you would be almost peers. I mean, you were probably only 19 or 18, the kids. And I have to ask, though, because as we were getting older and watching the show, we would all speculate as to which of the guys Joy was dating. So we would say, she's got to be...
You won't believe me if I tell you. You just won't believe me. None of them.
None of
them? No. No. I think we were too busy and too exhausted to even think about that. No, actually, that stuff that you read about, saying that it was more like brothers and sisters, was absolutely true, because we all respected one another. We were there to do a job, and, you can't start being silly. You've got to make the most of the opportunity that you've got, and that's it. I had a different kind of relation with each of them, only because they were three completely different type of characters in the most loveliest way, which is, I think, why we all got on so well, and also because we didn't have time to... We were there to do a job, and we all got on with it, basically.
So many generations of kids grew up watching the Bugaloos, and when I look back on it, I seem to think of it lasting for 15 years. But I did some research, and I went to Bill Ung's great website, the Tranquility Forest website.
Isn't it fantastic, that website?
Yeah, he's got everything on there.
Yeah.
I was shocked. It was only 17 episodes.
I know. Seems like 100.
I know.
I thought I'd better say that before you did.
Right? I was going to say, but did I just watch them over and over again and not realize that I was watching repeats? I don't know how that happens.
I think because they were so colourful and so imaginative, And, of course, you had a different song every week. And I think every time, probably, as you say, especially when you're young, every time you looked at it, you saw something different.
Right.
It was so imaginative and so colourful. It just got children's imaginations going, which is wonderful, which is fantastic, because I used to always say to my daughter, Sasha, I said, there's nothing wrong with being imaginative. She was always good she was fairly artistic, and always good at writing stories and things for her school newspaper and things like that. I say, you just go for it. Use your imagination. We all need imagination in life. Otherwise, life would be really, really boring. And I think it was just livening up their imagination. It was just taking them into another world.
So the show's on the air. It's doing great. It's a hit with kids. The music is doing well. And then I guess the series wraps and everybody leaves and goes home, and we never got any more Bugaloos.
Well, what happened was we came back for Christmas. We were offered either we could go to Hawaii for Christmas for a holiday and then back to Los Angeles, or we could go back to England to see our families. Well, we've been away from home a long time, so you could imagine youngsters having worked hard and being away from the family and friends back at home. Perhaps that was the wrong thing. Maybe we should have gone to Hawaii. But anyway, we decided we wanted to go back home for Christmas to England, and then the plan was to come back out again, in January or February. So then they were planning the film with Columbia Pictures, and obviously that was the next project, and to go back for that. So we all went back home to England, Christmas at home with family, and we were waiting, and there was no phone call, there was nothing, right, we want you back now. And it was just going on. Well, it's quite normal. After a while, you start thinking, well, what's happening? Is it not happening? Then Columbia was having financial problems. I think they actually went bankrupt back then. And of course, the film was cancelled. So then we thought, now what happens? We were still back in England. Time was going by. My agent as well obviously wanted to know what was happening. And I said, well, I haven't heard anything. I don't know anything. And then I think it was in the spring. I mean, a long time had gone by. We were phoning up and saying, what's happening? Are you having back? And then they said, well, Sid and Marty Croft wanted us to go back, but not to go back for anything specific, just to go back to be there. And looking back, and I think about it, I think probably if we had all gone back, as they had asked, just to be waiting for something might have happened. We probably then would have done guest television appearances, maybe made another record. Who knows? But we'll never know. But the general feeling was, well, what are we going back for? We're not going back for anything. And then I was offered, it was a very, very well-known popular TV series in England, not musical. It was an adventure series called The Freewheelers. And I was speaking to Wayne and John's and whatever. They were getting itchy. Big John was sort of dabbling with friends in music again and all the rest of it. And then I thought, I could be hanging on forever, and I don't want to turn down this opportunity to be in an English television series. So in the end, I said to my agent, no, I'll go for Freewheelers. I'll do it because I could be waiting for nothing. So I accepted the series. Contract-wise with the Crofts, they had to, I won't go into boring details, but they basically had to renew our contract.
Right.
And they hadn't done that because they were obviously probably working on looking where we were going to go next. But so I actually contractually was not tied up with the Crofts when I accepted to do the TV series The Freewheelers. But I suppose the question has always been, if we had gone back, would our life be somewhere different today? Possibly, for sure. But whether for the better or for the worse, who knows? That doesn't matter. You know, we go on. I've always been a positive person. And I carried on in show business for many, many years afterwards because I was, well, I better not tell you, but probably about another 20 years after, almost, not
Right.
quite as much as that. You know, I had always got work and was continuing to work. So it really was up to the Crofts
Right.
to say, right, we're renewing your contract, come back now, this is what we're going to do. But they never did.
Right.
So, you know, it's very difficult. You can't wait forever in your life waiting for somebody else to, you know, organize your life for you.
Right.
You come to a point, you just have to say, well, I have to make a decision now. Do I go this way or do I go that way? And I decided, you know, I got the freewheelers offer, and I decided it was too good to turn down.
Now, if I have the timeline correct, you retired from acting when your daughter was born, right?
When I got pregnant, the idea was that I would stop work probably for a few years while Sasha, my daughter, you know, was very young, and then
Right.
when she started at school, then whatever, go back to the business or dabble because my main love was the theatre, and I was doing a lot of traveling in the theatre. Unless, you know, to take a baby with your child, you can't do a different week in a different theatre
Right.
on tour. So when I got pregnant and had a child, we decided actually to get a holiday home in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Then the marriage broke up in Spain, and I decided, well, do I go back to England and go back to showbiz? Sasha was still very young. And I decided for the, you know, immediately just to stay in Spain and give it a try, just myself with Sasha. And here I am, you know, all these years later, still the same. Don't get me wrong. I suppose there isn't a day that I don't think, you know, you're in show business. It's something I've done since I was 7 years of age. I
Right.
love it. I call it my proper job. Showbiz was my proper job. Anything else was not. Usually
Right.
people say it's the other way around. But so I love it and I miss it. But my daughter was my priority.
Of course.
And I just thought Spain was such a wonderful place for a child to grow up because probably being a Catholic country, more so than it still is good, but times have changed obviously over the years. But they adore children. They love, well, they do everywhere. But it was just a different mentality. But in show business, if you're out of the business for a year, it's being out of the business for 10 years.
Right.
Because people want you to play a part in something. You're not available or you turn it down or whatever, so they find somebody else. And then in a year, 2 years, you know, you're almost forgotten. So to get back into it, I wasn't kidding myself either. In England, to get back into it, having been away for so long, the longer I left it, the harder it would have been. So all those things became part of the decision. I loved living in Spain, and I'm still here now.
Well, I have to ask.
Thinking about it.
Well, I have to ask you. You know, trying to find information about you online or anything on the internet is next to impossible.
Well,
so,
I'm pretty private. I'm very private about my private life, yes. I mean, if it wasn't for Bill Ung and Tranquility Forest, you'd probably find even less. Because, I mean, Bill, what he's done with that website over the years is unbelievable. He's also the Bugaloos alive, really.
Yeah, he really has. And, you know, in this crazy, chaotic world we have, don't you think that maybe, possibly, if there was an opportunity for new Bugaloos music, would you be up for that?
Of course I would. I'd be Grandmother Bug. the bug. Obviously, none of us look quite the same anymore. Right. So I couldn't be the younger Joy, but I could be, Joy's grandmum or whatever. So, and I'm still fit and still keep active and still pretty good, I think. But I doubt whether anybody. I've always said that. I'm always open for offers. Always open to offers wherever it comes from. But then getting more serious about it, it's a complaint that all actresses have when they get older, probably in their 40s,
right.
There's no parts for them. I mean, we know, and I know, and maybe your listeners know, I'm not 40 anymore, but we'll say no more than that. But I love living where I do. I've got a couple of horses here this morning. I got up early. I met my friends with their horses. We were on the beach, which was empty, 8 o'clock this morning, galloping on the beach, in the water with the horses. I mean, we can't do that in England because the climate's so awful.
Right.
So I do have a very, very nice life here. I'm very happy here. But that part of the reason I live here is because having lived in Los Angeles, when I went back to England, the climate then hits you even more. I couldn't stand it. I never liked the English climate anyway.
Right.
So, when we came to Spain, it was all for that, just because the climate here is very, very much like Los Angeles. It's very similar.
Well, it sounds like you're living in your own tranquility forest over there in Spain.
I say I live in paradise here.
I have one silly question as we wrap it up here.
No, nothing silly. Tell me.
No, this is really silly. I'm going to tell you right now. If the Bugaloos could fly, what did they need the car for?
Well, Tranquility Forest, in some parts, it was quite dense.
I see.
You really, to maneuver through all the trees and whatever, was not always very easy.
I see.
In and out. And we did clip our wings on one or two occasions. So when you've got a track in front of you and four wheels doing the work, it does become a little bit easier.
Now, I understand you have a birthday coming up next month.
Oh, my goodness me, I do, don't I?
Right.
Yes.
Now, do people go around and sing Older Woman to you, that song?
No, because here nobody knows about it. I don't tell it. Well, my life here is nobody knows about. One or two people, obviously, know about it. And I was I did the thing is, in England, I appeared in a TV series that was hugely successful, an adult, comedy TV series. And sometimes what happens, I mean, that was 100 years ago now, but they're always putting it on English television, which is nice because then I get another check through the post. But
is this only Fools and Horses?
That's right. Yes, it's a fantastic series. I was only in one, but it was one of the most popular.
Right.
It wasn't the Christmas special, but they always put it on at Christmas, and they're always putting it on television somewhere in the world, and even in England repeats.
Right.
And what happens is you don't tell somebody if they live in England and then they come out. And they say to you, Caroline, because they know you as somebody else, if you know what I mean. And they say, Caroline, I was at home a couple of weeks ago, and I heard this voice. And they don't have to say anymore. I know what's coming. And they say, and I looked up, and there you were, only Fools and Horses. And then, of course, then the truth comes out. But then they wouldn't know about the Bugaloos because the Bugaloos, unfortunately, wasn't shown in England. Or if it was shown, it was only on one or two minor TV stations. And the only reason it wasn't shown in general in the UK was if they had called it the Bugaloos,
right,
it wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
But because they called it the Bugaloos and the opening song was a very rude word in English, they couldn't put it on the TV. That was the reason, which is such a shame. Such a shame.
Well, it lives on, certainly in America, and it's on DVD.
Yes,
people could watch it.
Are you going to be contacting any of the others?
I was thinking of that. I was thinking of eventually, because, Bill is the guy who's got all the contact information.
Yeah, well, little John, funny enough, he sent me a message this morning. Just this morning. So John Philpott, because I sent him a message, because I hadn't spoken to him for a long, long time. And so I sent him a message a couple of weeks ago. And he answered this morning, and he apologizing, saying he hadn't been, with little John, I'd probably stay in touch with him. A year may go by or more,
right?
But probably, and Wayne disappeared for a while.
Right.
He went off, and I think went off to live in Italy for a while, and nobody knew how to get hold of him. So that's a dwindled out. Big John was in touch with Little John for quite a lot. I don't know if they still are.
Mm-hmm.
So in a roundabout way, we sort of, every now and then, we sort of hear about each other, but it may be over a long period of time and in a roundabout way. But Little John, I stay in contact more than any of the others. But no, I mean, it would be great for you to perhaps, if your listeners are interested, to speak with the others as well, maybe.
Maybe that's maybe that's what needs to happen. There needs to be a Bugaloos cartoon. Then you could just do the voices.
Yes.
And you don't have
to go,
yeah,
you see.
and you could still sing some new songs. That's my
Well, I'm probably a bit rusty.
Well, thank you so much. When I was a real little kid, you were the first girl I had a crush on when I was 3 or 4 years old. So
how lovely.
So this is a delight talking to you.
Did you ever send me a fan letter?
At that age, I was too young to do much of anything.
Oh, excuses. That's not good enough. That's just not good enough. Now I'm really hurt. I'm really disappointed now.
well, at the end of the show, you would always say, "We'd love for you to write to you," and I'd say, "Where?
Yeah, and
Where's the address?"
You never did.
I never did.
You never did. Oh, well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Caroline. You have a great day.
Okay. You take care, and good luck with the show.
The Bugaloos.